Hello dear students, welcome back to the English class. In this video, we shall continue with the prose lesson, The Storm, Part B. A quick recap of what we have done in the previous session. There's this young boy named Alec who is sailing home to America in a ship called the Drake, and he tries to be friendly with the horse who has been brought on board. The name of the horse is the Black. So he tries to offer him lumps of sugar. And then one particular night, a calamity strikes the ship, that is the storm, and the ship is cut into two, and all the passengers are running helter skelter. Lifeboats are been taken out by the crew to rescue the passengers. Now Alec, as he tries to get into the lifeboat, he realizes it already fell, and then he goes in for the second lifeboat. Just then he remembers about the horse, and he wants to rescue him. So he goes back to the stall where the Black is there, and he opens the door so that the horse can be rescued. Now let's see further what happens. Read. Then he saw the Black, his head held high, his nostrils blown out with excitement. The horse snorted and plunged straight for the rail, which is broken at this point, leaving nothing between them and the open sea. The Black swerved as he came near Alec, and the boy realized that the stallion was making for the hole. The horse's shoulder grazed Alec, who went flying into the deep. When he came up, he heard an explosion, and he saw the Drake settling into the water. So he tries to rescue the horse, and the horse comes to the railing suddenly, and as he suddenly swerves means turns around, his shoulder grazes around Alec, and with that impact, Alec goes flying into the sea. And then Alec hears an explosion, and he notices the Drake. The ship has now completely drowned. It has sunk into the sea. Let's read further. Frantically he looked for a lifeboat, but there was none in sight. Then he saw the Black swimming not more than 10 yards away. Something floated by him, a rope which was attached to the Black's halter, the same rope that they had used to bring the stallion aboard, and which they had never been able to get closer enough for the horse to untie. Without stopping to think, Alec grabbed hold of it. Then he was pulled through the water into the oncoming waves. So now Alec is now in the sea, and he looks around and he sees the horse is also swimming very close, not more than 10 yards away. And he also notices the rope which has been attached to the Black's halter. Okay. So therefore Alec grabs hold of it. He holds the horse's the rope which is tied to the horse, and so when the horse is swimming, Alec also gets pulled through the water. Let's read further. He was too tired now to think about what he had done. He only knew he had the choice of remaining in the water alone or being pulled by the Black. If he was to die, he would rather die with the mighty stallion than alone. With one last look behind, he saw the Drake sink into the sea. So now Alec didn't know what to do. He had two options. Either he had to just swim by himself, and possibility was that he could get drowned and he could die, or the other option was just hold on to the rope so that he could be pulled along as the horse would be swimming. So he said he thought like if he was to die, he would rather die along with the mighty stallion, the horse. And then he also saw the drake completely sink into the sea. Let's read further. For hours, Alec battled the waves. He could hardly hold his head up. Suddenly he felt the rope that was tied securely around his waist slacken. The black had stopped swimming, and Alec anxiously waited, peering into the darkness. After a few minutes, the rope became taut again. The horse had changed direction. So for few hours, Alec battled the waves. Battled the waves means he fought against the waves, trying to swim forward. Okay, he could hardly hold his head. He was struggling. And then suddenly he realized that the rope which he had tied around his waist, had slackened. It had become loose. So probably he thought the horse had stopped swimming. And suddenly the rope again became tight. Taut means tight again. So that means the horse had continued to swim and it had suddenly changed the direction. So that is why he felt the rope becoming tight again. So let's read further. 4 times the black altered his course, and Alec wondered whether the stallion's wild instinct was leading him to land. Meanwhile, first streaks of dawn appeared on the horizon. The sun rose and shone down brightly on the boy. The salt water he had swallowed made him sick. But when Alec felt that he could not hold any longer, the sight of the struggling, fighting animal in front of him renewed his courage. Now what was happening? The horse altered the directions. Okay, so Alec was wondering whether the horse was going towards the land. Now it was almost dawn. The first streaks of sunlight he could see on the horizon. The sun was slowly rising, and since he had swallowed a lot of salt water, he was feeling sick. He could not hold on to the rope any longer because he was too tired and sick, struggling against the waves. But whenever he saw the horse, he felt of not giving up, okay, to carry on. Let's see further. Here you can see how the black is swimming and Alec is holding on to the rope that is tied to the horse. He is fighting against the wave and is being pulled on by the horse. Let's read further. Suddenly, he realized that they were going with the waves instead of against them. Yes, they must be approaching land. Eagerly, he strained his salt-filled eyes and looked into the distance. He saw a reef he might find food and water there, and have a chance to survive. Faster and faster, they approached the white sand. With a shrill scream and a shake of his head, the black went faster through the shallow water to reach the shore. Alec's head whirled as he was pulled towards the beach with ever increasing speed. Okay, so now as he is fighting against the waves, okay, slowly he realized that they might be approaching the land. His eyes were filled with the salt. Okay, salt, because he was for quite some time in the water. Then suddenly he saw a reef, so he thought probably he might find food and water there, and he had hope that there were chances of survival. So faster and faster they approached so they were nearing the land, and suddenly the black went faster through the shallow water. That means now they were nearing the land. Shallow means now they were no longer in the deep sea, but shallow is just the opposite of deep, right? So they were now almost nearing the land. Okay, let's read further. Alec's head whirled as he was pulled towards the beach with ever increasing speed. Suddenly he realized the danger of his position. He had to untie the rope from around his waist, or else he would be dragged over the sand. Frantically, his fingers flew to the knot as the shore drew closer and closer. Now, as long as he was in the water, he was being pulled by the rope. That was fine. Okay, but now since he's on the sand, he understood the danger. Okay, that means he would be pulled along and then that he would get lot of blisters. So that is why he promptly decided to free himself from the rope. Otherwise, he would be dragged along the sand, right? So he decided to untie the rope. Let's read further. The black was now on the beach. Thunder began to roll from beneath his hoofs as he landed on the shore. Hours into the water, he had swelled up the knot. Alec couldn't untie it. Then he remembered the pocket knife. Could it still be there? Alec's fingers reached inside and came out with a knife. So now when they reached the beach, suddenly Alec decided to untie, but he could not untie because the rope had become swollen. It had swelled up because since it was in the water for a long time. Then suddenly he remembered the pocket knife. So he wondered whether it was still in his pocket. And he put his hand in his pocket and then he found the knife. Let's read further. He was being dragged by the stallion on the shore and sand flew in his face. He had to act quickly. He opened the knife and began to cut the rope. His body burned from the sand. His clothes were being torn off. Desperately, he sawed away at the rope. With one final thrust, he was through. As the black galloped to his freedom, Alec's outstretched hands caressed the sand. Both he and the horse were alive. So finally, he got the knife. So he tried to cut the rope. Okay. He was being dragged by the horse, right? And all sand was flying on his face. So he had to act quickly. So finally, with the knife, he struggled, he tried hard, and finally he could cut the rope. And he was now freed from being dragged by the horse. So, and then he saw the horse gallop away to freedom. Okay, fine. And Alec's outstretched hand, he could feel the sand below. So finally, he and the horse had survived. They were both alive. So the message that you get from this, what do we understand? The love of the boy for the horse. He wasn't selfish. He could have just escaped. He could to safety, but then he thought of the horse. Okay. He went back to help the horse rescue, run to safety. Yes. So finally, at the end, it ends with a happy note. Both Alec and the horse could survive the great ordeal. So here you can see how he cuts the knife. You can see he's freed himself from the rope. The horse is galloping and Alec is sitting there on the sand. So students, thank you for watching the video. I hope you have understood. If not, kindly go through the video once again. Thank you for participating. Take care and God bless you all.